Hi there, it's Catherine, your lawyer friend and guide, and this is the #1 podcast for legal careers in Japan. Hi everyone, and welcome back to Lawyer on Air. Today's guest is a dynamic in-house counsel whose career has been built on adaptability, authenticity, and connection. If you have ever wondered whether you need law firm experience before moving in-house, you'll want to hear Mina Hoshizawa's perspective. In our conversation, Mina also shares her insights on what it really takes to thrive in Japan as an in-house legal counsel. It's all about the art of unlearning perfectionism, the importance of showing vulnerability as a leader, and the practical strategies for building a legal and compliance function from scratch. I also asked Mina what metaphor best describes her career, and she said water. Her secret to success has been learning to flow around the rocks, to be fluid, adaptable, and open while moving ahead with purpose. I thought about this question for myself, and my metaphor is jewel. When a jewel is cut and polished, it still has plenty of flaws, but it reflects the light into others. So together, water and a jewel make a powerful pair, reminding us that careers in law are not about the sharp edges. They are about fluidity, agility, and constantly refining ourselves to be at our best. So as you listen, I'd love you to think, what's your metaphor for your career? Maybe it's one you could even use next time you introduce yourself at an event. Let's get into it. Hello, Mina, and welcome to the show.
Hi, thank you very much for inviting me.
Oh, I'm so excited for today. I do always have a warm-up question. So imagine we are meeting up in person. Where are we and what are you ordering to drink from the menu?
So I think we're in a cafe or bar on a beach in Phuket, Thailand.
Are
And
we?
I'll be ordering pina colada and you'll be ordering, I don't know, tequila.
Ooh, wow, a tequila.
Yes.
Ooh, that's quite adventurous for me. Wow, why are we in Phuket? Why did you choose Phuket?
We met in one of the external events
Yes.
and I knew you from LinkedIn pages, but when I met you in person, I felt your energy and the Phuket bar alongside the beach and drinking pina colada and tequila. That just describes, how you are and your energy. So that's why I
Oh,
chose Phuket, Thailand.
thank you. The pina colada lawyer. We'll just let that go there and see what happens. But it's so funny you say that because I never really think about the energy that I bring. It just happens. But it happened last week. I was in a breakfast meeting and someone came up to me afterwards to give me their business card. And they said, I chose to come to you first because your vibe and your energy when you did your self-introduction, and that was only 10 seconds, I could tell you were someone I wanted to meet.
Mm.
So I really thought about that a lot. And from what you just said now, how important it is when we meet people to bring some kind of energy, no matter how we feel, to raise it up a couple of percentages so that we actually do bring a really good energy.
I see your point. There are people who can bring good vibe to meetings and communications, just being there. So I think you're one of the persons.
I think I'm fortunate in that way. I will say that, but it's also a good lesson for everybody. What can we do this week when we're listening to this and think that next meeting, how can I bring up a little bit more extra vibe? Yeah. Well, I'm going to get into, hopefully will be a very energetic conversation with you. I really am curious about your early path. And I know that you studied at Hokkaido University, but I want to know what first got you interested in studying law?
Well, this might disappoint you a bit, but initially I was planning to go for economics faculty in Hokkaido University. But when I told my plan to my grandfather, he somehow strongly disagreed and strongly recommended law instead. And he even said to me that I would give you more money if you go to law. So, not thinking much, I decided to go for law.
Oh, where was that coming from? Was he in the law, or did he see something in you that he thought you would be better placed for being in the law area?
Actually, I don't know. He might have this prejudiced perception that law is better than economics. I don't know, but that was his philosophy somehow.
And did he actually pay you more?
Yes, he did.
Whoa, he promised. Very interesting. I wonder, can I ask you, is he still around?
Ah, no, he passed away.
Oh, and so you never found that out what it was. I wonder what it was that. But I'm glad, sometimes we think of these things and then someone steers us in a different direction, and they often see something in us that we never did. Even Japan, you can study law, and I feel that many people in Japan study law, but they don't go and work in the legal profession. But you have. So what sparked your decision to keep on pursuing becoming a bengoshi, a Japanese lawyer?
Again, this might not meet your expectation, but when I was in university, I think it was just the last part of jobless generation. So on the news, they always says that there are many university students struggling to find a job. So when I entered into Hokkaido University, my first thought was I have to get a job after graduation. And this thought was amplified because I am actually not from wealthy family. Actually, half of my tuition, university tuition was waived. That's where I am coming from. So getting a job was really a critical matter for me. And I thought if I want to get a good job, perhaps any qualification would help. And obviously, the most difficult in law area is and was Bengoshi license. And I thought, if not successful, I can still use the knowledge for other profession or other qualifications such as, public servant test and so on. So I just started without knowing if I would be successful or not.
Wow, I guess too that coming from a less wealthy background makes you perhaps value everything a little bit more than maybe if you had to just receive it, if you just received it and didn't really think about it. But has that served you well, that background of yours, that you've valued things more?
I think so. I believe or I guess that I had more hunger
Hunger,
to
yeah.
get a job and live a good life even after retirement. So that was what I'm thinking when I was a student.
It's excellent. I mean, and then you did actually start a career at Freshfields. Tell us about the work you did there, because that's a great firm to have landed first up. So you must have done very well in your study and came across well in your interviews. We've had a previous guest from Freshfields, and I know they are tough, but a great place to work. Perhaps you could share a story maybe that you had that was a success story and that you're really proud of, and maybe some challenge that you overcame when you're at Freshfields.
So actually, I stayed at Freshfields only for 2.5 years, and I had always been a junior associate there. And back then, there was no Gen AI or I don't know, those kind of fancy IT techniques. So I was deeply involved in some of due diligence work in M&As, looking at tons of lease agreements and so on.
Yes.
And of course, I was also involved in corporate secretary matters of some of our clients, including board minutes and shareholders meeting minutes and so on. And having said that, one of the biggest work that I was involved was share listing at Hong Kong Stock Exchange. It was actually for Japanese company, it was the first case that shares are listed in Hong Kong Stock Exchange. So there were many new things that we didn't know. But one of the biggest memory out of this experience that I have is actually I flew to Hong Kong to deliver a document because we could have used courier service if we had time, but we thought that we didn't have enough time for courier service to deliver the document. So, Mina, can you go there? Do you have passport? So I flew there with a piece of document and handed it over to my Hong Kong colleague. That was my biggest memory out of this Hong Kong Stock Exchange listing matter.
Amazing. It's like a secret agent.
Yes.
And I've heard these stories about hand delivery of documents like that, but I'd never actually heard a real story. So you're the first time I've heard someone having the document basically in your hand, right? In your hand luggage, taking it all the way there. And probably in the plane, you're checking, double checking, did I have that document? Is this the right version? Have I got it? And taking it over. Well, that's exciting. It's almost like that's a challenge and a success story in one. I love how you've brought that out because it's a challenging thing, but it ends up being something that you really remember and enjoyed.
Yes.
Wow. I think also when you've had many interviews and I've been scouring the internet about you, and I did see that you said when you're at Freshfields in those years that they're really still the foundation of who you are today. And I guess too, if you had to distill out maybe one or two habits or skills that you carry from those Freshfield days into now at Nihon Servier, what would they be?
Well, I think I can share three things. One is the basic skill to draft and review contracts and internal regulations, which are really key for in-house lawyers. That's number one. Number two is English. As you can see, I am not a native English speaker. So I had to try hard to sound natural, and the Fresh Fields days really helped me because I was in Tokyo office, but there were always two trainees from UK, and they helped junior lawyers like me drafting English emails and so on. And there were heavy markups always. And I almost always asked them, why did you change this sentence like this? How did my original sentence sound? Was it just not natural or did it have different meaning? So this kind of dialogue really helped me upscale the English level. So that's number two. And finally, mentality. So those days in Freshfields really taught me how is it like to be a professional and how is it important to have attention to details. So I think those three things, drafting, English, and being professional, they may sound very, basic, but for me, because Freshfields was the very first, working experience that I had, it was kind of a eye opener that, oh, decent lawyers would think like this, act like that. So this really helped me help my career going forward.
I love those three things. It's amazing. And that dialogue that you had about why you made changes and having to give your reasoning, right?
Hmm.
Why you did that. Or the trainees doing the markups and you're asking them why they did that,
Yes.
right?
Hmm.
It really helps them. And I think also helps you to understand what was maybe they saw that was different or
Mm.
needed in a what you may have used as a sentence quite regularly and they've changed it. Interesting. And I love how you've actually got quite a little English accent going on there. When you said markups, it was very English. So I think it's have a great influence on you. But that's really interesting, those three things, the key skills of drafting, renewing, and reviewing contracts, which these days you hear so much, don't you, about AI doing everything for you. But I think that's a skill that we still need to keep because I don't think the AI gets it quite right. Would you agree?
Mm. I totally agree. It's human being that would give final decision. And in order to have a good decision making ability, you have to know the basics.
Yeah.
So it's kind of off the topic, but in next generations, I wonder how young lawyers would learn those basic skills that can be substituted by AI and so on.
Exactly. I mean, it's fun and easy, and to do that, use it. But having the grounding in drafting actually makes you think better as a lawyer, I believe. Get the technicality of it right. It's also craft, it's an art, and you can be creative in it. So just having something pushed out to you as an answer doesn't really help you teach yourself how to be good at your job, right? Good at your craft. And I think also you did private practice before going in-house where you are now, and the role that you had before your current role. I believe you're kind of the thinking, and I am very much the same, that going and doing private practice before in-house is a good thing to do. Can you tell me a bit more about that, your theory there?
Mm. Professional firms like law firms, their working style, they're quite different from normal business companies. And if you're in a professional firm, you can work with talented lawyers who have attention to details, logical thinking style, energy to accomplish under huge pressure. And those things would influence young lawyers to learn how to be professional, I think.
Would you still think now that you'd repeat what you did, private practice first before doing in-house?
Yes, yes, of course.
But you did go in-house. What motivated you then to pivot to go to, I think Bayer was your first in-house legal role. So tell me a bit more about that. What made you or helped you think about, maybe it's time to go and do some in-house? Because you said private practice is different to normal business companies. So maybe there's a clue there.
Well, just like other in-house lawyers says, I also wanted to be closer to the business, not just touching the surface of part of legal issues, but just wanted to be in the business, looking at from start from the end and how my advice was, reflected in the real business. So that's why I chose to go into the in-house.
I see. So you enjoy the idea of being there from the very beginning. That's what closer to the business means, that someone will come to you with an idea and you get involved from there, rather than perhaps it could be at private practice level, the idea is already well baked and formulated, and they come with already most of the work done on the idea. So is this what you're saying, is getting close to the business, is getting right in there with the people who are perhaps coming up with the ideas or the formulas, if it's pharmaceutical, that kind of thing? Is that what you're saying?
Yes, being in a business for me is to being a true business partner for the business. And that means deeply understanding what they're aiming at, what is their pain points and what are their challenges. So if you're in a company, marketing can come to you, sales can come to you, other functions can come to you. But as a true business partner, you're not just looking at sales or marketing or other functions who approaches you, but you look at the company holistically. So when I first got into the in-house position in Bayer, one of the things that surprised me a lot was how different organization, different functions have different, motivation, KPI or challenges. But in the end, we have to work as a company holistically as one team. So being a true business partner for me is not just be nice to one function, but to consider the whole company as one big, client and provide the best advice for that client as a whole.
You've hit on a really good point there, that not being nice to one function, but also how different functions have different motivations. And as a legal team member, it can be quite challenging to balance those and bring people together. Did you find that as the legal member, compliance member, that you had to try and bring those different views together? It was really like legal sort of seems neutral in the middle. It's not sales and marketing or quality and procurement. You're kind of neutral in some way. Did you find that you were almost bringing together those different motivations?
Mm. There are not so many examples that I can share, but the easiest thing that I can do to have the harmonized good outcome out of my advice is to connect those functions. Sometimes they have their own, styles of doing things, and they think that this is the best choice. But I happen to be in a position to look after every function in the company. And I can sense that, oh, this must be also clarified by this other functions and so on. So connecting those functions can be a part of a good true business partner.
Exactly. And it's such a master skill to have because it really is, I think, undervalued that it's not really a skill, but actually, as an in house legal counsel, I think harmonizing, doing it holistically, you said before, connecting those functions is something that maybe anyone listening who's thinking about in house may not really pick up on, but you've hit it really nicely there, I think. And I expect from private practice, as was my case, coming into in house, there's a lot of unlearning, not only learning, but unlearning. Can you think of anything that you had to unlearn to be a really good in house legal counsel?
This sounds contradicting to what I have said, but in private practice, especially when you go to court, you have to be 100% at everything. And that's naturally expected for a lawyer in private practice. But in in-house, it's not how we work. We have to pick the fight and try to focus on what really matters. I'm saying this like I had really mastered it already, but it took me several years to truly understand what it means, and I'm still struggling as to, this unlearning thing.
So, what does it mean then? Does that mean you're not 100% as in house? What does that mean?
So there are various types of risks or importance in matters in companies.
Hmm.
And if you focus 100% at everything, then at the end of the day, you may not get anything at all. But in the limited time, you have to focus and do the most important thing. That means that unfortunately, we have to, let's say, ignore least important things. But that's how we operate as a business person. So you want to be 100% at key projects or key contracts or key matters. But in order to do so, because the time and energy are limited, we have to be brave enough to cut off those unimportant matters.
Wow, so well explained. And also, you just reminded me as you were talking. I don't know if you've heard of Warren Buffett. I'm sure you have, but he has a recommendation that you have a list of the top 20 things you have to do,
Mhm.
and then you knock out 15 and you keep the top five, and that's all you do.
Mm.
And he said that's been the key to his success. I have to look at more into it, but it's interesting that you say that is that you have to let go of some of the things that you can't get on top of and just focus on the most important things. So thank you for that. That was really well explained. And I see what's happened there with unlearning from 100% perfect to let's focus on the top stuff. So many lawyers who listen in here are very curious about moving in-house. What kinds of practical steps should they take from your playbook that would prepare them for that transition?
Unfortunately, in order to pass bar exam and be somehow successful in private practice, you have to have some sort of court skills. But as an in-house counsel, those skills are not important, I have to say.
Mm.
Instead, basic skill to draft contracts, internal policies, these are really fundamentally important. And if you are in private practice and thinking about moving in-house, and if you have chance, I strongly recommend secondment experience because that would give you semi-real experience working in a company. And also English is a big plus. I myself is a hiring manager and I search talents. But if you combine lawyer's qualification and English, the pool of candidate becomes so narrow. That
Yes.
means
Yes.
from candidate point of view, they can free to choose whenever they want to. So yeah, English is also a big plus.
Wow, amazing. How about for lawyers who are considering moving directly in-house then? Would they have the same ideas or would you convey the same advice to them to not really worry about the fact that you haven't got court skills, but just go straight into focusing on certain areas such as English and other areas? How about that if they're wanting to move straight from law school to in-house?
I understand that for some law school students, it's not easy for them to find a private practice experience. So some have to join a company before experiencing private practice. If so, my recommendation is to join a big company with big legal team. Why? This is because if a company is big, then there would be so many, let's say, legal disasters, serious issues requiring legal support almost every day. You may not personally involved in each and every such issue, but learning, how your colleagues deal with those issues will really help you understand how you would handle those if you had become in-house counsel leading the team in the future.
That's such a good idea, right? As we're learning from other people as well. It's not always what we ourselves experience, but we can learn through other people's experience. So joining a company that's got a large legal team, well, what a great advice. Is there anything else you'd suggest? Because I'm thinking English, and if I think about Japanese, I'm still learning Japanese after 30 years, right? It's every day I learn something new. But when you say learn English, do you mean get to a certain level where you can talk with people or understand a document? Is that the kind of English you're talking about? Or be conversational, that you can communicate with maybe colleagues outside of Japan?
So I cannot just select one skill in the language. It's a combination of reading, writing, speaking. But I have met tons of Japanese people who are struggling with English. And one of the things I notice is just as a nature, as a Japanese, we are a little too shy in meetings. So if you know a basic grammar, basic vocabulary, you can just express your opinion easily. No one expects you to be so knowledgeable about grammar or write fancy, difficult English sentences. In business context, being simple is most appreciated. So it's sometimes just the courage to start using English. I hope that would help some listeners who are struggling with English.
Indeed, like simple is best because we sometimes try and make it too difficult, but simple is so good. It cuts through everything.
Yes.
And you know what? Even these days, when I'm about to say something in a meeting or I know I want to say something, I'll actually write it down if it's Japanese, not English, of course. Japanese, for example, I will still write things down just so I get it out of my head on a page and then I can say it and not look at the page, but it's there as a backup. And also, I feel that kind of helps you because you've got it there. It's a backup in case you suddenly lose your place, but you end up not needing it because it's come out of your head on a page, it's resting there, and you get the courage to then speak. So I'd add that in as one of the tips that I still use after many, many years because it just helps give you courage and balance and be quieter and be able to say something simple.
Mm.
I love that advice. Thank you so much. And now you're at Nihon Servier. Have I got that right, the pronunciation?
Well, actually, it's French, and I know nothing about French, so I don't know. It should be right.
Should be about right. Thank you. You've established the first legal and compliance function in Japan for this company, right?
Indeed.
Amazing.
Thank you.
Wow. And you've been there 6 months?
Yes, just completed the probation period.
Woohoo! Congratulations. Wow. What were your priorities? People talk about first 100 days. I just talk about like the first number of months to get through you've just done that, right? Getting through the time when they're looking at you and making sure they can confirm you as the person in the job. But if we talk about priorities, what were they for you when you came in? Because setting up a legal function and compliance function from zero basically is tough. So what did you concentrate on first?
First thing is to know what is expected from senior leaders, local senior leaders. So I had one-on-one with every senior leader in Japan and listen to what they do first and what is their expectation to legal compliance. The second thing is to know the organization. As a pharmaceutical company, there are basic functions like sales, marketing, medical, but each company has its own, uniqueness in how they organize their functions. So learning and meeting key persons from each organization was one of the things I did in first days. And also from those conversations with senior leaders and key persons in functions, you start to think about what will be the quick wins to showcase that you're useful in this company and you can be your ally. So those are the things that I focused on in the first place.
I love your point number three because sometimes it's just a little daunting that you've got to do everything. And we've talked about you having the way of trying to focus on something now, but what were some quick wins that you can share? Perhaps it's not the precise detail, but what would a quick win look like?
In my case, this was, for example, running a very basic training on what is contract, what is signature, and so on. Because we didn't have any legal person inside, we relied on external lawyer who did contract reviews. But it's not easy for non-lawyers to understand what contract means, what signatures means at the beginning. So I sensed from the conversations with key leaders and senior leaders, people are eager to learn the basics about contract and so on. So I did a simple training. Another thing was to open an intranet site on contract templates, legal compliance rules, past training materials, and so on. There was no such page before me. And I thought that in order to demonstrate what I do or what we do as a function, legal compliance, I have to have a one-stop shop where people can look at and extract information from. So I created a one-stop shop page called Legal and Compliance Top Page. So those are the things I did as a quick win.
They sound like they would have taken a while to do, but obviously you have a lot of practice and you know what they need to know. So you could just plot those in there and populate that intranet. What a great idea that people have a resource to go to. If you're not there or they don't want to ask you the basic question, they can go in there and have a check first and then come to you, which eases your load as well as your workload. And I also love how you're empowering the organization to know a little bit more about the contract, which is a promise, right, with the customer. So if you're promising, why is it important? You're helping them to get the reasoning behind what contracts are and what the value and importance of the signature is. So they sort of own it more, have more ownership of the process, I would say. It must have been very helpful to do that.
Right. If you are just told what to do, it's boring. But if you start to learn what this means, what this actually, mean, then you get interested in that, task. So hopefully my training, it was really simple. It's like contracts 101, but
Yes.
hopefully the audience learned that, oh, what I did actually meant this
Yes.
meaning. So hopefully they enjoy, and with the fundamental knowledge, they can move forward asking me, more, let's say, matured questions.
Brilliant. And I think you could almost, if it's possible, upload this conversation to the intranet. I think people would get to know a bit more too about you and help them to understand your theory or your thinking behind setting up the intranet, right? And getting people involved. I think this would be nice to have up there if you can. I also noticed in another recent article you shared a checklist of questions that you always start with when you're joining a new company, from how the business earns money through to how the teams are evaluated. I wanted to build on that and think about what kinds of questions did you ask that were really the richest conversations that you probably didn't even know they were going to say as an answer. So have you got anything there that might help someone who's thinking, okay, I loved your idea of getting to know the senior leaders, but what do I ask them? What is going to be really good as a question that they can reply and gives you the richest insight for yourself as the new in-house lawyer?
Well, if you are joining a brand new industry, then how does this company earn money would be the most powerful question, because that would tell you how this company earns money, but at the same time, it shows you which business relationships is the critical one for us, and for what matter do I need to focus. So the question, how does this company earn money, will be the most important one if you're joining new industry. But learning KPI of each department is also really insightful. And you may encounter a situation where one department sets this KPI, another department sets this KPI. They can look contradictorily. And so in such case, you may bridge those functions together. As a company, how can we better set KPI? How can we look at the same goal? So these questions can be also interesting for a new person joining a new company.
Great. And how about now that you've got colleagues, obviously in France and before with your previous company, I think they may have been in another country. But what advice would you give to others who are trying to build that bridge, not only between the departments in Japan, but actually outside of that, colleagues who are in another geography?
It's really important question because I am in an international company, and Japanese subsidiary can just be one of subsidiaries. But if you show your presence and show the importance that you play in local, legal department and local company, the presence or the voice you have within the global conversation can become bigger. So being visible is really key in thriving in international company like Servier. And by showing your opinions in the meetings, just asking questions, those contribution that you make is a huge plus in order for you to be visible in a very diverse international community.
So how do you be visible and make a contribution? Are you talking about meetings where you put your hand up and you say the contribution from the Japan legal compliance team? Or what does that look like? Is it also contributing on documents that might be circulated or emails? What does that look like? The visibility.
Yes, being active in meetings is critical. It's the basic thing that you have to do. And also, if you have chance, you might want to introduce what you do locally that can be useful for other countries. For example, if you have this template page or if you have this local unique quiz event, then you may want to proactively seek slots in meetings to demonstrate that in Japan we are doing this kind of interesting thing and this can also be useful in your country. So those contribution by sharing knowledge and opinions, I think these are key.
Right, sharing information, not holding on to it. Yeah, what's a local unique quiz event look like? What's that? That sounds like fun.
It's something that I did in my previous company. I had wonderful team member who is really good at coming up with these interesting, motivating events for internal colleagues, inviting them to participate in quiz competition to win, certificate. And sometimes it's not only compliance that are excited, but we also involved the business colleagues, especially the winner's supervisor, so that he or she can do a ceremony of
Mm,
award prize to that employee in front of other team members. So I was so lucky to have this person in my team who can come up with those ideas and execute those ideas.
I love it. Gosh, who wants to work in your team? It sounds like lots of fun. And what a way to do it. You know, recognition is one of the things that is so important for employees, especially in Japan, because engagement surveys often show that recognition is the thing that they don't receive and that it would elevate their engagement if they received more recognition.
Mm,
So if there's one thing that could change in Japan, and I think legal teams would be one example, is recognizing people. It just changes everything. I also love too that you've been really open in past interviews about being quite a vulnerable leader. And I saw on your LinkedIn profile, you actually have a certification learning from failure, which I've never seen anyone put on their profile. But in Japan, people are often, leaders especially, expected to project strength and certainty. And so I feel like you're almost embracing imperfection and it's helping build a stronger team. If I'm on the right track, can you give me an example of how that works in action and a little bit more about this certification? It sounds very interesting.
mm. So my philosophy is no one is perfect. And oftentimes I say to my team members that I'm actually terrible at reading people's emotions. So if you have any concerns, please come to me. I will not say no. I promise that I will listen. But just know that I am terrible at reading signs. So that's what I almost always says to my team members. And another example is everyone has different background, and I may not have deep knowledge in particular areas of work. And I say to my team members that I'm good at this part, but I am actually not familiar with this part. So please help me understand what's going on there. And I would like to develop myself too. So that's what I say to my team members.
I see, right. So you're being pretty open with them, telling them or letting them know that you maybe can't read emotions very well or that you're not familiar with this part and asking for help.
Yes, yes.
Oh, that's interesting. I don't know that that happens very much. Do you find they do actually come to you and let you know how they're feeling and inform you some more if it's a part of something that you're not sure of? Do they do that? Come forward to you?
I believe they do. There may be there may be more things they want to say to me which they are holding, but I think team members are open to me talking about their struggles, what help they would need,
Hmm.
or they sometimes they just want me to know that they're struggling and they're not asking for my, tangible help. But talking with each team member really helps me understand their struggles and they release their stress maybe to me.
Yes. Yes.
So hopefully it worked.
Great. Well, we talked about recognition before for others, but I know you've been recognized in quite a number of awards. LexisNexis Under 40, the GC Power List Rising Star, and I think JILA, the Japan In-House Lawyers Association, you received their first compliance award. So what do these recognitions mean to you? And do you somehow encourage the team through those?
Well, first of all, it just feels great to be recognized by someone.
Well,
But
thank you for saying that. It's great that you can say it's great. You know, lots of people hold back and be very humble, but good on you for saying it's great.
yeah,
Yeah, well done.
but everyone's main work is to work for a certain company in a certain team structure. And sometimes you think that your world is the only world. But if you go outside and learn from others, you start to think that, oh, my world, my company, my team is just a tiny portion of the entire world. There are many interesting things out there and many things to learn from. So that's when I think you will become so happy to be recognized by someone who do not necessarily know you, but it's really rewarding that something I have been doing is not just appreciated by my closest stakeholders, but it's also being recognized as something above the market. So it just feels great. And yeah, I really appreciate those opportunities that I got awarded by LexisNexis, GC, Parlist, and JILA.
Wonderful. It's kind of significant, isn't it, when it goes outside of, as you say, your small world to the market, to your peers who see that, even if they don't know you, and even better if they don't know you, but they see the work that you've been doing. That's really, really fantastic. How have you seen your role in-house in Japan evolve over I think you've been in practice around 15, 16 years now. So how's it evolved and what do you see as the skills that in-house legal counsel are going to need in these next, I suppose, 3 to 5 years? It's changing so much, but can you help me on what you're looking at, looking back, but also looking forward?
Well, I really cannot represent the whole in-house community, but in my case, I used to be a kind of in-house lawyer who thought that I have my way of doing, and the business colleagues, to some extent, have to follow or you will follow what I do. But this way of thinking changed over the years, and now I truly think that legal is not the core of the business, of course. We have to support the business. We cannot be the bottleneck in the business operations. Of course, we sometimes have to say no, but if we can proceed with the business, my task is to ensure that business can proceed as fast as they can. So in previous years, I thought that legal has more, let's say, importance in the organization. But now I feel that the legal function is really a business partner, and business is the very, very important core in the company. And legal is a kind of function who can really support the business.
That's a real change, isn't it?
Yes.
Wow. And I think when at one stage, you talked about going overseas, right? So changing your perspectives over time from what you've just said to also that aspect of going overseas. And I think it's one of the things that you perhaps didn't do, but you think that perhaps other people should travel out of Japan. And I know Japanese people in general are not traveling so much out of Japan these days, post COVID. But for lawyers, do you think it's still prudent advice for them to take time and experience not only outside of their department in the community that you mentioned before, but going overseas and experiencing life outside of Japan?
I still do. If you're working in a company located in Japan, you tend to think that this is the only world, but there are many other cultures, other industries, what have you, and being exposed to those different kinds of persons or different kinds of culture would really open your eyes. And I think you can be more creative in, handling daily works and even come up with interesting events or projects, what have you. So I am really in favor of exposing myself, into different world.
So, what would the piece of advice be that you would give to the younger Mina Hoshizawa, who's just finishing maybe even Hokkaido University? What would you say if you could turn around and see her there in front of you? What would you say to her?
Well, I would say that you should at least attempt to go abroad to experience different cultures, different companies, and that would help your career, even if you decide to come back to Japan. So that would be my advice.
Well, you talked about energy at the very beginning, my energy, but I'd love to know what energy you get from outside of work. Any hobbies or rituals or anything that you get up to that we didn't know?
Actually, I am a very boring person,
Are
but
you? Wow, I wish I'd known that before I got you on the show.
but if I choose one, I sometimes play badminton with
Oh,
my
good.
daughter.
Lovely. That's fun. What's something that you've learned to appreciate then about your past version of yourself?
Difficult question.
Yeah, it's a difficult one, isn't it? You're sitting here now, but you think, oh, actually, that past version who didn't go overseas, you're okay. It's an interesting question.
Well, I think whatever you do, if you're honest and sincere, you can make it somehow. So you don't have to worry too much about anything. Just do it.
I love it. What a great answer. My next question is, what's something surprising about you that people wouldn't know?
Um, I have a motorcycle driving license.
No way. Why? Why do you have that?
When I was in high school, almost every day went to public library to study, and I used bicycle, but in summer especially, it's really tiring.
Mm,
And my father happened to have a motorcycle, so I decided that I get a license so that I can easily go to the library for study.
love it. I bet nobody knows that in your company.
I
How
think so.
interesting. Well, this is a little crazy question to finish, but if you think about your career as kind of a metaphor, right?
Hmm.
Like it could be that your metaphor is a type of food or a type of jewel, like a sapphire or something, or it's a sport, or maybe it's a motorbike. What would you call your career if you gave it a metaphor? It's an interesting question.
Yeah, I think I am water.
Tell me more.
So you can tell from my earlier days in universities or when I was in high school, I don't have any particular, let's say, goal or what I really want to do thing. I don't have such strong desire to accomplish something. And that's who I am. I join company, and if company wants me to be like this, I can be like that. If a company or team want me to be like this, I can be like that. So I am really flexible. So that's why I chose water, which can change its character or shape easily.
It can, right? It can freeze, it can go into mist. It also, if it's water running down a river, it can go around rocks,
Mm,
right? So it's moving flexibly around things that stop it, right? Rocks.
yes.
Wow,
Yes.
I love that. I didn't think you'd say that. That's very interesting. I love this question now. So it's one of my top questions I'm going to keep asking people. Water. Well, Mina, thank you so much. We have reached the end of our conversation today. I really appreciate you coming on, Lawyer on Air. It's been an absolute pleasure to speak with you in such a way. I hope you enjoyed your time today.
Yes, indeed. Thank you, Catherine.
Great. Before we finish up, where is the best place then for listeners to reach you if they would like to connect? Would that be LinkedIn or somewhere else?
LinkedIn will be the best place. I regularly check it, so please feel free to drop me a line.
Great. Well, we'll put that information in the show notes. And to my listeners, if you've enjoyed this episode and it's inspired you, given you something to think about, I would love to hear from you. Please do drop me a note or like and subscribe to the podcast and leave us a review if you have a chance. That's all for today, everyone. See you back here on the next episode. Cheers, kampai, and bye for now.